From the micro to the macro, let's look now to E.J. Dionne, the Washington Post columnist, senior fellow at the Brookings Institution. Good evening, E.J.
Good to be with you, Keith.
All right, from the macro, we've given you that assignment. What happened last night?
Well, Mitch McConnell didn't become majority leader, which is probably why he looked so unhappy in that clip you showed. The line that came to me was an old line from a British writer, "The past is another country. They do things differently there." And I was really struck by how different the electorate that came out to vote yesterday was from the electorate that came out to vote in 2008. In particular, how much older the electorate was yesterday, and also more conservative. In 2008, voters under 30 were 18% of the electorate. Voters 65 plus were 16%. Yesterday, voters under 30 were only 10-11% of this electorate. The over 65s were 25%. And so I think one of the things we got to think about in trying to analyze what happened and why the Republicans gained all those House seats is whether a lot of Democrats were asleep or disillusioned or didn't come out. Now, young people always vote more in presidential elections than they do in midterm elections. But with young people being so progressive relative to the rest of the electorate, I've started to wonder, as have some others, if you're dealing now with a two-sided political system, where you've got one system in the midterms and one system in the presidential elections.
What happened to the government? I mean, does anything get accomplished, or how does anything get accomplished if one party holds the House, the other holds the veto pen, and nothing from either side can make it through this now even more coagulated Senate? Is this now suddenly a coalition of the unwilling?
I was thinking they could name post offices after you, but that would probably get blocked in the House
of course
now.
It would.
I mean, I think that one of the tests is going to be, who is John Boehner? His gut is as a deal maker. He made deals with George Miller, one of the most liberal Democrats in the House, on education bills. I think that's his instinct. However, he's got a phalanx of conservatives behind him with bayonets who don't want him to make deals. I was struck by how much more conciliatory he sounded today than McConnell did, but of course he is going to be the speaker. I think it's going to be very interesting what President Obama does to test the Republicans. I mean, we know, especially from what Mitch McConnell said, that the Republicans really are looking to 2012 because they want all of the power back. And does Obama say, all right, let's do revenue sharing for the states? You might have called it stimulus 2 years ago, but that's a nice Republican name. Do they want to make their Republican governors angry? What about infrastructure spending? They're supposed to be for that. And where are their budget cuts that they talked about? I was struck that President Obama said, all right, let's see their specifics. I think we're going to hear a lot of that from him.
Yeah, as we heard last night about discretionary spending, and then no one could name one single thing that was in that list. You mentioned the bayonets. They're being held by the Tea Party, which thinks it created this leadership, particularly in the House. What happens when, and they consider the term treason was used to describe compromise. What happens when a compromise of any kind is brought in front of is handed to the Tea Party?
Well, it's going to be interesting. Boehner now has such a big majority, and by the way, Democrats have fallen under 200 seats, as far as I can tell, only twice in a long time. In 1946 was the last time. And before that, you got to go to the 1928 election. So this is a big Republican majority. So he has a little room to maneuver. But I think it's a real tension in the party. And as you mentioned earlier, they got a real lesson here about the downside of the Tea Party. It's like the Tea Party paradox. Yes, they may have helped mobilize this very conservative electorate, but when they dominate the primaries, they nominate a lot of people who are going to lose. And I'm curious if that weakens their hand a little bit with a leadership, some of whom probably privately wish they would go away or at least be very quiet.
One thing we know they can't do. The Washington Post, E.J. Dionne, proposing a Keith Olbermann post office, an idea that will die before the commercial break. Thank you, E.J., for both.
Good to see you.